G'day guys, that guy Purps here, back with another music reaction video. I'm going to be jumping into a new Australian artist that I haven't had on the channel before. If you do know Paul Kelly and his song Little Things, like From Little Things Big Things Grow, then it's sort of a remake of that sort of thing. The new artist Ziggy Ramo is an Australian Indigenous artist, and he teamed up with Paul Kelly's permission, and Paul Kelly actually came on the track with him to record it. It's not a sample from the other song, so he spoke out to the original writers of the song, got their permission and everything else to write this song. All I've heard about it is that they were talking about it on Triple J, the national radio station here, and as it went to start playing, I had to keep working, so I didn't actually get to hear it. So I thought, well, I'll chuck it on the channel, and yeah, I'll experience it with you guys. So yeah, I just seen up on the screen now the acknowledgement of country. That is a very important, not tradition, more of a ceremonial speech that Indigenous people have for their land, especially when coming into someone else's land. My understanding is they give an acknowledgement that you're the custodian of this land, and yeah, so Ziggy here with the acknowledgement of country. The Sydney Opera House honours our First Nations by fostering a shared sense of belonging for all Australians, and we acknowledge the Gadigal people, traditional custodians of the land of which the Opera House stands. So it's paying respect to the elders that are current, the elders of the past, and the elders that of the land of the Gadigal people, or whatever nation of the 500 or 600 odd Aboriginal nations within Australia. It's just paying respects, and I guess, yeah, if you don't know the history of Australia and how it was settled and colonised, and everything that happened to the First Nations and Indigenous people of Australia, yeah, it's pretty sad, and I guess all we can do as a nation is try and learn from the mistakes, acknowledge what has happened. There's been a lot of mistakes made since the beginning as well, with stolen generation, and even now, like, incarceration rates of Indigenous people are disproportionate to anywhere else in the world. I don't know anyone watching from America, like there's a higher rate of black people from America being incarcerated. The rates here per capita are just outstanding is not really the right word. Astonishing would be probably the best word. And I guess that comes from a disconnect of the pain over the last 200 odd years of white settlement, and the same, I guess, with a lot of black communities throughout the world who have had white people come in and try and take over. There's a lot of history, a lot of pain, and yeah, it is. It was National Sorry Day here the other day, and it's Naidoc week, which is I suppose acknowledging and trying to give a little bit more spotlight to the Indigenous artists and the Indigenous culture here in Australia, to try and bridge the gap between all the misunderstandings that there are, and trying to acknowledge the past and what's happened, and try and find a way to come together and move on. But yeah, I know Ziggy's pretty controversial, I guess, in a way, with like he doesn't skirt around the issue. He tells it as it is. He did a song about the Anzacs, and obviously as a former defence personnel, like I didn't find it offensive. I saw the message of what he was trying to say, but a lot of people just got offended by it. Like, how could you say that? Blah blah blah. So yeah, I hope I don't think it's gonna be like a poppy rock song. I think it's gonna have It's going to have an agenda. He's an advocate, and he stands up for the community. And yeah, I'm all here for it. So I'm gonna stop waffling on. I just saw it 7 minutes, and I've already been speaking for far longer than I probably should have. And yeah, I don't claim as well. I don't, I try and give information where I can, but I don't claim to know it all. I don't claim to have the understanding of the Indigenous people and their plight and their suffering and the pain that they experience. But I can emphasize in knowing that there is pain there, and have that. I don't know. I'm trying to understand and learn and grow, and trying to bridge the gap myself. So let's get into this one. So yeah, that's the classic from Little Things, Big Things Grow. I think it's been around since late 80s, early 90s. I really need to look up on that. Definitely, mid 90s it was definitely around. So chances are you have heard that regardless of where you are in the world. But yeah, let's see what Ziggy does with it.
Gather round, people, and I'll tell you a story. 200 years of history that's falsified. British invaders that we remember as heroes. Are you ready to tell the other side? We start our story in 1493 with a piece of paper called the Doctrine of Discovery, invoked by Pope Alexander VI. Without this good Christian, our story don't exist.
From little things, big things
grow. Wow. Is that him on top of the Opera House? Wow. For those who don't know, that's the Sydney Opera House, very iconic building in Australia. And I believe that little dot up on the top there, that middle hump, is Ziggy.
From little things, big things grow.
Captain James Cook, he boarded a fleet, and he was armed with the Doctrine of Discovery. The same tactics were used by Columbus. It's how today Australia claims terra nullius, 'cause on that paper the Pope did write that you're only human if you've been saved by Christ. And if there are no Christians in sight, the land you stumble on becomes your God-given right.
From little things, big things grow. From little things, big things grow.
Is that your Lord? 'Cause that's invasion. That's the destruction of 500 nations. The genocide of entire populations, which planted the seeds for the stolen generation.
Yeah. Yeah, he's spitting facts too. And see what I mean? Like he doesn't pull any punches. Everything he said so far, has been true, and I suppose the quicker our government, admits the faults of the past, the quicker we can try and heal and move on. But it's I guess from little things, big things grow. Like from that one mistake, all these other things have now come to pass, and you've got generations of people that are living with the hurt of the stolen generation, and then and that was where the white society thought that indigenous people couldn't look after their children as well as they could, so they tried to integrate them into our the white world by stealing them from the parents and adopting them out to white families. So you've got this whole generation of people that grew up not knowing their heritage, not knowing where they fit in. They're like a black man in a white society, so they don't really fit into white society, but they don't know the culture and their history of where they came from. It's pretty sad how people of colour have been treated around the world, and it's not just isolated, to Australia. It's like it seems to be everywhere that the English, Spanish, French, and the Dutch, anywhere that they went from Europe and the Europeans went and tried to settle, the same things happened. It's like, it's pretty sad.
100 nations, the genocide of entire populations, which planted the seeds for the stolen generation and grew into my people's mass incarceration. Now we pass trauma through many generations. The Lord can't discover what already existed. For 200 years, my people have resisted.
From little things, big things grow. From little things, big things grow.
The war's continued since Captain James Cook. And this side of history you don't write in your books. You don't want the truth and you don't want to listen. But how can you stomach Australia's contradiction? Cause we went to war in 1945. We were allies against a terrible genocide. And I know it's uncomfortable, but the irony I see is that you fall for them, but you don't fight for me.
Wow. It just hits like I don't know about anyone else who's listening to this song, but it's a more of a spoken word sort of poetry. It's not really singing, it's not really rapping. It's just honest facts, and it cuts deep, I really feel bad that this is how countries were created and founded, and I know that's the way it was and that's everything else, but it doesn't mean that it's right, and it doesn't mean that we can't really go back and change things, because it's happened, but we need to acknowledge that it's happened, and we need to understand what's happened, and look at both sides of history. We're all taught, one side, be proud of this nation. We're all, we were discovered by this, but there were people living here. Like the Aboriginal culture is one of the oldest, or is the oldest living culture still in the world. It's over 65,000 years old, and yet there's still people here that would deny that they even existed, and there was no one here. Terra nullius, vacant land is what that meant. There was no one here, no settlements. What they should have said was there are no European civilized colonies or whatever. There were plenty of people living here, that's for sure.
From little things, big things grow. From little things, big things grow.
we should move on. Move on to what? I still remember. Have you forgot that Vincent Langari knew others were rising? Garinji inspired us to keep on fighting. So call it Australia, go on, call it what you like. I just call it how I see it, and I see genocide. Now that you hear me, can you understand? There will never be justice on our stolen land.
From little things, big things grow. From little things, big things grow.
This is the story of so-called Australia, but this is the story of so much more. How power and privilege cannot move my people. We know where we stand. We stand in our law.
From little things, big things grow. 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 From little things, big things grow.
Since 1991, 441 Indigenous Australians have died in custody. They're casualties of a war that never ended.
That's a lot. I don't know the total statistics of how many deaths in custody total there has been, but there shouldn't be any. You know, like when you're in custody, you're meant to be taken care of. But there's been a lot of Indigenous deaths in custody, and over silly things that they shouldn't even have been in custody for. Like a parking ticket or something. Just small crazy things where like.
They're casualties of a war that never ended. But we are not yet defeated. Always was. Always will be. Sovereignty was never ceded.
And then, to finish off with the beautiful sound of the didgeridoo, like, I knew he wasn't gonna hold any punches, but like, it was just fact after fact after fact, and just with that simple line from Paul Kelly, in the back, in the chorus there, from little things, big things grow, and that's exactly right. Like, it's like a ripple effect. You drop a pond in the ocean, those ripples, keep going until it hits the bank. But in terms of like pain and generations, that ripple's going to keep going until we find somehow to to come together. And I guess like you said, call it what you will, but I think there are people out there who are willing to find a way to move forward, and it's not always going to be like a blame thing. And like, yeah, it always was, always will be. The land literally was taken and stolen from them, and there needs to be some way that we can all make up for that. Like, I'm very like honored that I've been able to live on this land, and I didn't have a choice. I was born here, much like Ziggy was, I guess. So, how it came to be that I was born here, though, that's from generations moving in and everything else. Like, I don't know. I mean, I can really see the First Nations argument, but I don't see we can't just pack up and move. Like, this is my home too. So we have to acknowledge the past and understand that atrocities happened. We need to find some way to make up for it. We definitely need to incorporate the indigenous culture and embrace it. Why? I'm proud to live in a land that has the oldest living culture in the world. Like, I may or may not be a part of that culture. That's still undetermined, but I can still very much appreciate the culture. I want to get to know more about it. I was lucky enough to be in a school that had like a high population of Indigenous kids. We did Indigenous studies. I've had Indigenous friends my whole life. So I've been exposed to that. My grandparent used to go and work in the Aboriginal communities. When I was with the military, we went up to a few Indigenous communities, and I got to have a few meals. We went fishing and learnt some bush tucker with them, and it was really good. They understand the land that they live on way more than any politician sitting in the cabinet would. Like, so if we can incorporate that culture a little bit more and embrace it, there's a lot of resistance at the moment. I think there's a lot of people that still have the real old school way of thinking, which we really need to get rid of. But yeah, I hope and plan to be able to support Indigenous and First Nations Australians as much as I can. Learn more about their culture, and obviously if you look at a map of Australia with all the different nations of the First Nations people, there were, I think you said 500 nations. There were 400 and something different languages. There were all different. Like, the east coast of Australia was different. I suppose it's like the Native American tribes. Like, each tribe wasn't the same. They didn't all speak the same language. They didn't all have the same traditions and customs and everything else. They were still of the land, and they knew the land and everything else, but they did things their own way. And I'd really like to learn more about where I'm from, and the places where I've stayed, and incorporate more of that culture into my own life. But yeah, I hope you like the reaction, guys. Bit of a deep one, bit of a gets you in your feels and your thoughts. And yeah, for any Australians out there, yeah, I guess it's time we take a step back and have a good hard look at ourselves, and try and find a way forward. Try and unite and get rid of all this division and everything else that's in the world. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Yeah, I'm coming off of a sickness, so I'm a bit rattled in the head, and that was like, so yeah. But yeah, make sure you head over to Ziggy Ramo's channel, show him some love, support this artist. Not all of his music is this spoken word stuff. He does a little bit of everything. So make sure you head over to his channel, show him some love, subscribe, like the videos. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Until next time, I'm that guy Purps, and I'll see you then.